Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Namaskritya Naram
Naram
Chaiva
Chaiva
Narottamam
Narottamam
Devim
Devim
Saraswatim
Saraswatim
Vyasam
Vyasam
Tato
Tato
Jayam
Jayam
Udiriye.
Udiriye.
By reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nan Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
Nastaprayeshu
Bhadeshu
Bhadreshu
Nityam
Nityam
Bhagavata
Bhagavata
Sevaya
Sevaya
Bhagavati
Bhagavati
Uttam
Uttama
Shloke
Bhaktir
Bhaktir
Bhavati
Bhavati Nastiki.
Nastiki.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering off service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for joining us. And I wanted to seek your good wishes and your blessings so that we can look at the overview of the Bhagavatam, just get an idea of what we will be looking at in a little bit more detail over the next few months. And in that way, please, Lord Narayan, Narayan, Srimati Saraswati, Srila Vyasadeva, Srila Prabhupada, the Guru Parampara, Radha Madhav, and Krishna Balaram. So today we can recite one slok together, which is this one here, 10th verse of the first canto, first chapter. Parlayena
Paryusha
parushabhyam
Sabya
kalau asmin
Kalasmin
yuge
Yuge
jana
Jana
manda
Manda Sumanda
sumanda
Matayo
matayo manda
Manda
bhagya
Bhagyahi
upadata.
Upadata. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men almost always have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed.
Does that sound familiar at all to anybody? That applies probably
Yes.
to everybody except Aruna. No, it's a common issue. Everybody has got this issue. But thank you, Aruna, for jumping in there, diving in. Yes, this is a big issue. And actually, as we've been discussing through the lessons of the Bhagavad Gita, we can use our weakness to make it our strength. Because we are in Kali Yuga, we are in a vulnerable position. We are weak. We don't have to make it up. We are weak. So Krishna, he gives shelter to those who are distressed. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu, Jagatpate. So he gives shelter to the distressed, and we are naturally distressed in Kali Yuga. So that weakness can be used as a strength to get the mercy of the Lord. Anyway, today we wanted to have a quick overview of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the nectar that we will be sharing with each other over the next few months. This is from the Sri Brihad Naradiya Purana, 96th chapter. It gives an overview, and the chapter is entitled Description of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it goes like this. O best of Brahmins, in the first canto, in the meeting of Sutta with the sages, the universal form of Bhagwan is described. The virtuous bestowing punya or pious merit stories of Vyas, Pandavas, Parikshit are narrated there in the meeting in detail. The conversation between Parikshit and Sukadev in the second canto describes two types of creations. The conversation between Brahma and Narad describes the nectar of the Lord's activities. The second canto of the very intelligent Vyas also describes the characteristics of the Puranas and the process of creation. So that's the second canto. Very much starts talking about creation. Third canto tells of the meeting between Vidur and Maitreya. It has a section on creation and ends with a description of Brahman and Paramatma. Third canto also describes the original Sankhya of Kapil. I must say, of all the cantos, I usually struggle with the third canto. It's very philosophical. But I think when we do it in company with each other, it'll be really nectar. Beginning with the story of Sati and the virtuous story of Dhruv, the supreme fourth canto narrates the virtuous stories of Prithu and Prachinabharhisat and the Visaga, the secondary creation by Lord Brahma and others. So the first creation is that which is inspired by Lord Vishnu. And he also inspires the second creation, but that is performed by Lord Brahma. Brahma is a living entity like you and me, but very, very powerful, and has been given that task by the Lord and empowered by the Lord as well to do the secondary creation. Fifth canto narrates the virtuous story of Priyavrata and his dynasty, as well as the description of the universe with its lokas. So we've gone through that, the structure of the universe, in not that much detail, but we did it some time ago. The fifth canto also describes the stay in hell, and we did that very recently, although we didn't go into any detail of that. The story of Ajamil, the progeny of Daksha, the story of Vritasura, and its end, the virtuous birth of the Maruts, are spoken about by Vyas in the sixth canto, which concerns the Lord's comprehensive mercy. Very, very interesting canto, because we have the wonderful pastime of Ajamil, who at the end of his life happens to chant the name of Narayan. He was calling out for his son, but he called out Narayan, and he was rescued from hell, basically. And Vritasura, on the outside, was a demon. On the inside was a devotee, and his pastime is really super excellent. It's an amazing pastime, which is only really analyzed thoroughly in this Purana, the Bhagavatam. The virtuous story of Prahlad and a description of Varnashram based on material desires are narrated in the seventh canto, O dear child, which concerns the description of materially motivated activities. So Prahlad, we all know the pastime, or maybe not Lee, but this pastime is a super excellent pastime of Lord Nrsingadev, half man, half lion. So it's that's very, very interesting when if we ever do get there. The eighth canto describes Gajendra's liberation, the Manvantaras, periods ruled by the Manus, the churning of the ocean, the bondage of the opulent Bali. The eighth canto provides the story of Matsya, as well as the story of Suryavams, the dynasty of the sun god, and gives description of Somavams, the dynasty of the moon god. Ninth canto concerning a description of the dynasties, speaks of various Vamsas, and the characteristics of a great one, a great sage. Now, this is where the nectar starts. The story of, well, it's all nectar actually, because it's all connected to Krishna. But the 10th canto is the 10th canto. The story of Krishna's childhood, his life in Braja as a young boy, his life in Mathura as an older boy, his life in Dwarka in his youth, and his removal of the earth's burden are remembered in the 10th canto. And we'll see a little bit later how big the 10th canto is. It comprises the vast majority of the Bhagavatam, or a big chunk of the Bhagavatam anyway.
Also known as the Krishna book.
Also known as Krishna book. And we had the great pleasure yesterday of sharing the Krishna book with, is he with us still? Yes, there he is. Oh, so yesterday, Lee took a Krishna book and he's already read one chapter. Is that right, Lee?
Yes, that's right. In the very early hours of this morning.
I've never met somebody. Yesterday, Lee must have taken about, I don't know, 12, 13 books or 10 books. And he already
10,
read,
I think.
it was 10. He read already the first chapter of Krishna book, but he also read the first chapter of the Bhagavatam. So I've never had a situation like this, Lee. So well done.
Well,
Very
thank you.
Anything you'd like
Do
to...
a wonderful read.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Anything you'd like to share about Krishna book that sticks in your mind?
Nothing at the moment. No.
Oh, that's fine.
So it's just...
That's fine. If he does, let us know.
I will.
Okay, good. Then the talks between Narad and Vasudeva, between Yadu and Dattatreya as an Avadut Brahman, and between Sri Krishna and Uddhav, as well as the mutual end and liberation of the Yadus are remembered in the 11th canto. The future of Kali Yuga, so predictions are in the 12th canto of what's going to happen in this Yuga. The liberation of King Parikshit, expansion of Vedic branches, the austerities of Markandeya, and the transcendent supreme glory of Sri Krishna are described along with the enumeration of the Puranas in the 12th canto. So this is the basic summary in the Puranas. So it's a very nice summary that's been given. So who is this Sutta Goswami? We talked about Sukadev Goswami, but actually the narration of this Purana begins with Sutta Goswami because Vyasadeva was present when all the sages met, when Sukadev Goswami was speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, but so was Sutta Goswami. They were both present. And then Sutta Goswami left. He joined the another satsang in Naimisharanya. Thousands of sages got together. And he spoke the Bhagavatam there. And we'll come to how he spoke that Bhagavatam in a minute. And at that time, Vyasadeva wrote this Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's at that stage which Bhagavatam has been written. Sutta Goswami is also known as Ugrashrava, the son of Roma Harshana. Roma Harshana was a disciple of Vyasadeva. He was pretty learned. But an incident took place. Lord Balaram came he didn't want to participate in the Kurukshetra war. So Balaram went to all the different holy places and bathed in different places. Eventually he came to Naimisharanya, where the sages were gathered. And everybody rose, everybody honored him, they gave him a seat of honor. But he noticed that the speaker, Roma Harshana, did not rise to greet him. Now, when a speaker is speaking, generally, he doesn't need to rise, doesn't have to rise because he's speaking. But Balaram noticed a little bit of pride in Roma Harshana, who's the father of Sutta Goswami. And Balaram, performed one of his amazing pastimes. He picked up a blade of grass and he simply killed Roma Harshana. This was quite an act. And actually the sages there, they were shocked. They said to Lord Balaram, "What have you done? You killed our speaker. You've unknowingly killed a Brahmin. Therefore, even though you are above the Vedic injunctions, of course, Balaram is the first incarnation of Krishna. He doesn't have to follow any injunctions, and he generally doesn't either. We request you to set a perfect example for the general populace by atoning for this sin. God can't commit sin, of course. But Balaram was very humble. And he said to the sages, yes, you're right. And what I will do is we will appoint the son of Ramaharshana, who is Sutta, Ugrashrava, to become the speaker. And I will empower him. And as Indulekha yesterday, Mataji said, he gained all the knowledge of Ramaharshana Sutta. I didn't realize that bit. But also, Sutta Goswami was a Shrutidhar. Shrutidhar is somebody who just has to hear something once and he'll never forget it. Not only he won't forget it, but he can analyze what was spoken and he can express it in his own way, in a self-realized way. So Sutta Goswami was very, very qualified to be speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya and speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's quite an interesting. We'll hear his name many, many times as we go into the Bhagavatam. So continuing with the overview, the Bhagavatam is actually a description of Krishna's body. It's non-different from the Lord. Just like his holy name is not any different from Krishna himself. So the Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna himself. It's described that the first two cantos are his lotus feet. Canto 1 and Canto 2. Canto 3 to 9 are the rest of his body up to his face. His smiling face is the 10th canto. And the 11th and 12th canto are the crown on his head. So this is the Bhagavatam. It makes up the Lord's body. Very interesting. A little bit of another little overview here. The first two cantos, as we said, lotus feet. 3 to 9 describe the manvantaras, the manus, the avatars who advise Manu. Manu is the father of mankind. So these avatars are innumerable. It's just mind-blowing how many expansions of God come during the day of Lord Brahma. And 10th and 11th cantos are the pastimes of Krishna. And then the epilogue, the sort of conclusion, is in the 12th canto. So that's a general summary. A little bit more detail of the 3 to 9 cantos. The first 5 cantos describes the first Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, in this day of Brahma, and his children as well, Daksha and many others. Very intriguing pastimes that take place, which we will have the great fortune, hopefully, to go through. And then in the 8th canto, 13 other Manus are described. And then our current Manu, who's in charge at this moment in time, Vaivasvata Manu. He is described in the 9th canto. This will become a lot more clearer as we're going through it. So just looking at the canto, canto by canto. So first canto is like we'll start tomorrow. Inquiries of the sages and the discussion between Narad and Vyas. And we've talked about it, where Vyasadeva was a little bit dejected and then Narad Muni came and opened his eyes, if you like. And then the prayers of Mother Kunti. And I was really impressed by Riyansh today. He was reciting these prayers of Mother Kunti by heart. So I was very happy with that. And then the pastime of how Parikshit Maharaj became the king and he counteracted Kali, but then he got cursed. And then there's pastime of Bhishma, who advises Yudhishthir how to rule the kingdom. And then the Pandavas retired. They left because Krishna left. They decided they couldn't live without Krishna. So they left as well. Then the age of Kali took over. Sukadeva Goswami enters the conversation, the discussion, at the end of Canto 1. And then there's a discussion of Krishna Katha compared to mundane topics. Unfortunately, we are addicted to mundane topics in this world, especially hearing the news about coronavirus. And that's really dangerous because the virus might not kill us, but the time we waste in hearing about this virus will kill us, because it's like the frog in the middle of the night is croaking, and the snake of time comes and catches that frog and bites and swallows it. So we've got to be very careful we don't waste time by the frogs croaking, because this snake of time will catch up with us very fast. So we always recommend don't watch the news because it's the same thing happening to different people. Don't watch the news because it's not going to do any good. So, and then we talk about, Canto talks about meditation, creation, what we talked about, the Purusha avatars, the original creation by the Supreme Lord, how he creates. Then we have the Chaturasloki in the second canto, which is Lord Narayan's 4 sloks, which expand into the whole Bhagavatam. Then the 10 topics of the Bhagavatam we looked at yesterday. Third canto includes this discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. It's a very highly philosophical discussion. It talks about creation, Varaha, Lord Varaha, who came early on, the cursing of Jay and Vijay, how the Lord wanted to fight, and he can't fight in the spiritual world, so he comes and fights in the material world. And he doesn't fight with just any old person. He fights with his pure devotees. Only they're capable of fighting with him. Nobody else is. Then there's a discussion, again, highly philosophical. Kardama Muni and Devahuti Sankhya philosophy, distinguishing between matter and spirit. And then Lord Kapil discusses that with Devahuti, very philosophical. Fourth canto gets a little bit easier because there's loads of pastimes. And when there's pastimes, we can sort of learn from those pastimes the philosophical points. So here we start with Daksha and his interaction with Shiva, Dhruv Maharaj, amazing pastimes. 5-year-old boy who did so much incredible tapasya that Lord Narayan came in front of him. He was such a determined 5-year-old boy. It shows that we're never too young to start devotional service. And we're never too old either, Lee. Never too old to start. So you've timed it perfectly. Narayan was on his deathbed. Ajamil was on his deathbed when he started Krishna consciousness. So it's never too late. But we shouldn't leave it so late because there's so much nectar. And it takes time to absorb this ocean of wonderful philosophy, wonderful pastimes to discuss. And then the Pachetas, Prachina, Bhari King, his sons, how Shiva would preach to them and they would give up all material desires. King Priyavrata, his pastimes and Lord Rishabdev was no different from Lord Vishnu himself. And then his progeny, Bharat Maharaj. And this pastime is one of the most interesting pastimes. It talks about reincarnation, how this man, Bharat Maharaj, he almost became completely in love with God, but he just failed at the last moment for some reason. And the Lord is so kind, in his next life, he allowed him to remember who he was in his last life, in his next 2 lives. One life was a deer, and the other was as Jad Bharat. And he achieved perfection. So God showed that he's so kind. King Rahugana, cosmos is discussed in the 5th canto. 5th canto is also discusses the structure of the universe, which is quite a complex area. 6th canto is complete nectar, Ajameo, Indra, Vritsura, King Chitraketu. This is one of the most instructive pastimes in the whole Bhagavatam. I use this all the time, and I tell it to school children. So, but it's quite a eye-opening pastime, which we can maybe spend a minute on it. King Chitraketu did not have any children, and he had many wives. So he was very upset. And one day a sage came and blessed him with a child, but told him that this child will give you great happiness, but also great unhappiness. So Chitraketu didn't care about the great unhappiness. He was happy he's going to get a child. Anyway, he got the child, and he became close with the child and the queen who bore him the child. The other queens became jealous, killed the child. They poisoned the child. So the child was dead. The king was in agony, and as was the queen. And then the sage came back with Narad Muni, and they asked him, what's wrong? Oh, my son has died. So they said to the child, rise, O Jivatma. Why did you leave your parents so early? And the soul went back into the body of the child, and he rose and he said to the sages, which parents are you talking about? I have had millions of parents in my past lives. So which parents are you talking about? So this was very instructive for Chitraketu, realizing that we've had many lives in the past, and we shouldn't be so attached to our relatives because they will come and go. Because the soul is actually attached, is related to Krishna, and that's the main connection. Everything else is temporary, and we have to put it in that perspective. Then there's pastimes about Diti, and then there's questions asked. The beauty of this Srimad Bhagavatam is questions and answers. Parikshit actually means examiner. So Parikshit examined the philosophy. He questioned Parikshit, Sukadeva Goswami many times. And one question, he questioned Sukadeva Goswami 3 times. And that was in relation to partiality of the Lord. So it's not that we accept everything on face value. We question it when it doesn't seem to outwardly make sense. So this is the pastime of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj, when Nrsimhadev comes and gives protection. Prahlad Maharaj is one of the greatest devotees of the Lord. He was always being harassed by his father, to the point that the father wanted to kill him. And he tried in many different ways. But this boy was such an amazing soul that he would never ask even for protection from the Lord. He always thought, my father is just playing with me. But he was always remembering Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu. So even when he was in danger, he wouldn't even think about it. He was just meditating on Narayan. He was thrown off a cliff, but he was just simply chanting, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And in that way, he was always protected by the Lord, even though he never asked. This is the most incredible personality. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit down with Gadadhar Pandit and listen to these pastimes again and again and again and again. Our Guru Maharaj would do the same. He would read the Prahlad pastimes so many times, over and over and over again. Really glorious pastimes. Then Bhagavatam describes ideal human life, family life. 8th canto talks about Gajendra, the elephant, the churning of the milk ocean. Very incredible pastime. Mohini is the incarnation of the Lord, who is female incarnation, who bewilders Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is not easy to bewilder. But because this was Vishnu in the guise of Mohini, he bewildered Shiva. Bali Maharaj is discussed, Matsya, Ambarish and Durvasa Muni, fantastic examples of how to behave. Ram, Lord Ramachandra is described briefly, as is Parshuram. And then the 10th canto, which is the Krishna book. Because Prabhupada is kindly given. We shouldn't read the 10th canto until we've been through the first 9. That's the etiquette of Bhagavatam. But Prabhupada has given us Krishna book, which you can read at any time. So the 10th canto is Krishna, Krishna, and Krishna. 11th canto talks about how Krishna wound up his family in this world. And there's also the phenomenal Uddhava Gita, which hopefully we can go into some detail. Then the final canto talks about Kali Yuga, what's going to happen, gives a summary of the Bhagavatam as well, talks about the austerities performed by Markandeya Rishi, and finally how Parikshit Maharaj left his body, the 7th day. So just a little idea. This is a little bit small. I'm sorry about that. Canto by canto, how many chapters there are in each canto. The biggest canto is number 10. There's 90 chapters. It comprises 27 or 28% of the whole Bhagavatam. So it's a huge, huge chapter. It's all about Krishna. There's a total of 335 chapters. So I was thinking if we're going to cover it in 100 seminars, then we'll try to summarize 3 chapters a day, if we can. And its total is actually 14,000 verses. Generally, we hear that the Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. 12 cantos, 335 chapters, 18,000 verses. And it is, except that some of the verses are very long. And generally, the Grantham is 32 syllables. So if we divide the total of the Bhagavatam by 32, we would get to 18,000 verses. Prabhupada has written 5,800 purports. He's really done the most incredible. This is more than a miracle. This is impossible. This is like Krishna's taken charge and written it himself. So that's why we have incredible gratitude to Prabhupada. There's absolutely nobody in the history of any material universe who can achieve what Prabhupada has achieved. There's no chance. He's the greatest spiritual master ever existed. The biggest canto is the 10th canto with 90 chapters, 4,000 verses, and from the beginning of Sri Krishna pastimes in the 10th canto until his disappearance on the 11th canto, there's 5,300 verses describing Krishna, 37% of the Bhagavatam. So we can see it's given huge prominence compared to the other expansions and incarnations. The 3rd and 4th cantos are huge. So when we get there, we'll look at those. Smallest canto is the 2nd canto with 393 verses. And the next smallest is the 12th canto with 565 verses. Smallest chapter in the Bhagavatam, this is just for people who like statistics, is the 23rd chapter. It's only got 9 verses. And the biggest chapter in the Bhagavatam is the 29th chapter of the 4th canto, 89 verses. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a few chapters with 400 verses. So this is dwarfed by that. Okay, so that was it. Did you want to share anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say before we start the Bhagavatam, just a few things that we maybe we can meditate on tonight. So the Bhagavatam is actually Radha and Krishna. So while you're reading the Bhagavatam, you can think of the black writing as Krishna and the white pages as Radharani. And you can meditate that Radha and Krishna are actually performing the beautiful pastimes in the pages of Bhagavatam as we're going through it. And the Bhagavatam is actually the bridge that we can use to cross this unending material ocean of repeated birth and death. So just a couple of things that we can meditate on. And also the Bhagavatam is like the sun, and the 12 chapters are like the 12 months of the year. So all the chapters are revolving around the Bhagavatam. And there was a Sanskrit professor at the University of Chicago, Daniel Ingle, and he said the Bhagavatam is one of the most beautiful poetic pieces in the world, because it has so many different meters in it. Because there's, if you look at the verses, they're all different sizes, so the meters are all different as well. And Prabhupada, as you've said before, he toiled his blood and sweat to get this Bhagavatam, because that was his life work actually. And if we don't read the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada is shedding tears wherever he is. So if we read the Bhagavatam, it will really, really please him.
Thanks. Thank you for that. So, Madhusudan Prabhu, would you like to share some realizations?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You can hear you.
So, Hare Bol to everyone, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to Guru Maharaj, and all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Shri Radha Krishna Bhagwan Ki Jai. It's wonderful to have an overview of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And as it's said, that there has to be a perfect recipient and a perfect deliverer of Srimad Bhagavatam. None of us are perfect in a way, but we are, obviously making an effort here, a lot of effort by you to have done all this overview, there's so many verses in each chapter and all that. And, to some, like you said, statisticians would be impressed by that and would love to know all those sort of details. But, you can't comprehend how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest achievement by Srila Prabhupada, obviously. He put so much effort, and whenever we read Srila Prabhupada's purports, we wonder how a person like Prabhupada, coming from that kind of background, was so scholarly, and his command of the English language was very, very high as well. The words he chose, each and every word he chose and phrased the sentences and with deep meaning and the correct emphasis and correct meaning for us, to benefit from, because, we, on its own, without the purport guiding us as well, it would be very, very difficult, So whenever I've read, I've always been impressed with Prabhupada's choice of words and choice of sentences. And he himself, in his time when he was with his disciples and devotees, Prabhupada would read his own purports, and then he would be amazed. He said, "Did I really write this? I just can't believe that I've written these, actually." Then he obviously admits that there's Krishna's hand in it, and Krishna has obviously given him the words, the choices. And as Bhagavad Gita says, I give the intelligence whereby you come to me. But Prabhupada was given all that intelligence by Krishna. And so we are sharing this, and we are embarking on this journey together, this Srimad Bhagavatam. And obviously, there are people who, will have a philosophical minds, and we want to know the origin of the creation, where it all began, where we came from. One of the first questions is, who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? What's the purpose of life? Why are we here? Why is all this suffering? And as I mentioned once before, that, it's like entering the middle of a movie, and the movie is going on and you come in the middle of the scenario and you start to wonder and try to make sense of the story. And so what happened before, what happened after, what's going to happen in the future? And you get tangled up in that. And that's what our predicament is. We come into this world and we get birth, and maybe many times, who knows, we've been through situations, but now we've come to a point where we inquire, what is the purpose of life? Where am I going? Who is the Supreme Lord? And you can only do that in the human form of life, where the consciousness is there, the facilities are there, the faculties are there to make inquiries. But as Prabhupada keep mentioning in his purpose all the time, that if we just live like, sleeping, mating, defending, and sleeping, then that's no different from any other animal life. So, our consciousness is more developed and is higher than the animals. So we don't want to be leading an animalistic kind of life, which we would end up doing throughout our life. But this is the most important part of a life, when we come to a point where we're questioning and inquiring. And Bhagavatam gives the direct answers to all these inquiries that we can make. And it obviously emphasizes Krishna is the origin of all creations. He is the Supreme Lord, and you should know more about him. So obviously atheists are there. There are different categories. Prabhupada mentions that in the introduction and in the first, as we enter into Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first verse, even, within the first verse, how Prabhupada expands on in the purport that, the cosmic manifestation is created for a certain time by the will of the Lord. That means Krishna has a will. If we see, thy will be done, as it is said, and we say Krishna's will, then he creates, he maintains, and then he destroys at his will, So whenever it's his will, if this Kali Yuga is to be destroyed and ended, well, that's Krishna's will, and he can do it. But the prayers and the, like our Guru Maharaj used to keep saying all the time, that this Kali Yuga is progressed so much suffering. And when people like Guru Maharaj, they see the suffering, they feel it, they're very compassionate. They want to bring an end to the suffering. And the way to bring them to suffering is to bring about more understanding of the Bhagavatam, and more, and obviously their prayers and their requests to Radharani and Krishna to please alleviate the sufferings of the living entities. And Kali Yuga can be shortened, Guru Maharaj would say, Kali Yuga can shorten its own life, like we can as well, our own lives. So, there is a supreme will, as it is said in the Bhagavatam, behind this whole cosmic creation and activities. So we're in the middle of a movie going on, and we think, well, we're right in the middle of this somehow pandemic. It may come and go. Many pandemics may come and go. Many leaders and misleaders will come and go, but we don't want to get tangled up in that. We have an opportunity here to inquire into the absolute truth, which is Krishna. So, with the blessings of Guru Maharaj and with the blessings of all the devotees present, I'm sure we're going to enlighten ourselves, not just be entertained, but rather, enlightened. And it's a deep study here. So you've made a good start to this with an overview. Now well done. Thank you very much. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. It's actually all the mercy of the Guru and Prabhupada. Without him, we couldn't do anything. We can't do anything anyway. So any questions, any comments?
Left.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Swati.
What is the name of Vyasudev's wife?
Yeah, Vataki.
Veda.
Vataki.
Yeah,
Something like that.
Vatika.
Vatika.
Patika.
Yeah, Vatika.
Okay.
That's right. We'll probably come across that. Oh no, we came across it yesterday. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Vatika. That's right.
Oh, okay. I'm not there now yesterday. I want to read that.
Yeah, you can find it on the notes. You should.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Indulekha Maji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice points you have shed light on whole Bhagavatam. Very nice, very good. Thank you. It's good sometimes to encourage all the participants if they can at least say something so that you can know if you have understood. Right?
That's right.
Sometimes we just keep on narrating, and we use our time for research, our energy, and all, and then either we haven't understood anything, or we have understood everything. So if during the course, if you can just ask all the participants, even few words, even a question would be nice, right? Even this Mataji just asked a simple question, but it's very nice. It's knowledgeable. Everybody can get the knowledge out of it.
Yeah, questions.
So I would request everyone to please come forward with even a simple question. Don't get scared. There's no question that is like silly. All the questions are a good question, right?
That's right.
That's what I wanted to say. Okay, thank you.
No, that's a very good point. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, we used to have quite a lot of interaction. So I think it will happen in this as well. But let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody got a question or any comments? Happy to for you to participate, contribute. Karuna Bandar, maybe?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I'm trying to digest this huge flow of nectar, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
No, it's okay.
It's a nice hearing.
And have you must have read the Bhagavatam, right?
Little bit?
I see. Not cover to cover.
No.
Okay. So one of the things, that's actually, it's good because in one sense, one of the things we want to encourage is to read. I wanted actually to ask devotees, if it's possible, and you have about 20-30 minutes, you can read the first 3 chapters, even if it's just the translations. Purports will take a little time. But if you just read the translation, because the next, tomorrow, if it's possible, we're going to go through the first 3 chapters of the Bhagavatam. So if you read those, you will get much more out of this, because all we're going to do is an overview of these chapters. The detail is in the verses. So if you already read the verses, then you will find the overview more fruitful. You'll find the overview a little bit more helpful. So if that's possible, then I would recommend. And in that way, you're also reading and hopefully studying one of the most important scriptures. As Jayanti said, Prabhupada would be very happy if we're studying his books. And at some point, we need to read the purports, because as Madhusudan Prabhu said, purports is actually where the nectar is as well, because he's given everything in the purport. Sometimes the purports repeat themselves, and the reason for that is Prabhupada wants to drive it home. And he's given everything in the first three volumes, because it wasn't clear what he was going to do. He wrote the first 3 volumes in Bharat. Then he went to America. Was there any chance of doing the Bhagavatam there? He didn't know. Of course, he completed the Bhagavatam apart from the 10th canto, part of it. But there was by no means it was certain that he was going to finish it. So in the first 3 volumes, he's put everything into it. So it's definitely worth reading over it. It'll definitely help makes huge spiritual progress.
Also, as and when we read, we will find questions. So we can write down our question and ask in class. In this way, we know who's reading, who's not reading, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. The thing is, in one sense, Malaji, this is voluntary. So it's up to us. How much we put in, we'll get out of it. So you're absolutely right. If one really, like dives in, it'll be fantastic. But we can't force anybody to do that.
I know we can't force, but this Purushottam month is very beneficial. Anything we read, it will be for our benefit. So like you are doing a great job. So you're trying to follow on Prabhupada's footsteps. He did so much, and then now it's in our hand to try and get others on the path.
Absolutely. I mean, I must admit, I'm very selfish because I'm gaining more out of this than anybody.
But no, Prabhuji, no, listen, even like I am telling for others' benefit, I am selfish, although I'm getting my benefit too, because when they ask questions, I will learn more from them also, right?
Yeah, true.
Of course.
Yeah, true. Yes, very good, very good. Okay. If there's no comments or questions, we can shift on to the Nashinga Kavach.